Hey guys, this is your old pal Mike, aka Big Daddy Brooklyn, coming to you live from the comfort of my own home. Considering the school board had a time limit on it, and a very short one at that, I was not able to give the speech that I worked on for 7 days and 7 nights like I was hoping. However, what better way to do it than right now and fulfill my promise to you all on Facebook? Here goes. Distinguished members of the board, I represent the class of 1998 and of Parchment High School's past. I come to you today as a voice of hopeful reason as I stand with the state's best teachers who once stood alongside me during my tough times here at Parchment High School. I am Michael Bovicino, aka Brooklyn, and this is my story with those very same teachers who once stood with me. Mr. Blough is the first one I would like to speak about. I had the pleasure of being one of his very first students. Me and Mr. Blough had our moments where we butted heads in my freshman year. I can't begin to tell you how many Saturday detentions he gave me because of the use of curse words I had during class hours. And many of us thought he had no emotions of any kind in the beginning. Boy, were we wrong. As we learned more about him as time went on, and he connected with all of us, especially me. Mr. Blough saw how much trouble I was having in his class as time went on, and how math, even if it was integrated, was not my strong point. One day he pulled me aside after school and had a chat with me. To my very surprise, he asked me a few questions of what I and my friends thought of his class. I must admit, I was shocked as to why I was being asked this question. A student would not be asked every day. Mr. Blough, to my surprise, explained that my grades were pretty poor, as well as many of my friends who were also having difficulties in his class. To my surprise, Mr. Blough was asking for my opinion on what possibilities he could explore on how to get me and my friends to better understand the complex math equations being done in his class. Before I said anything, Mr. Blough assured me that considering it was after school hours that I would not be in trouble in any way, shape, or form with my answers. It was strictly off the record. I was concerned at first, but I took him for his word, and believe it or not, it paid off, as I could then see how trustworthy of a teacher he was. I told Mr. Blough that I and my friends have had many talks about him, and the conclusion we had about him was that he had no emotions that we saw of any kind, and there were actually some of us who thought he was looking to fail us in his class out of sheer enjoyment. But Mr. Blough laughed and said he is only human, and it was just a part of any human being's emotions that one can have in the beginning. I believed him on his words. My answer to his question was a rather curious one to him, it seemed. I mentioned the idea of having a class vote with everyone present and see what they have to say on the matters to keep things fair, as I could not speak for my friends. I told him I had a new respect for him as I offered my hand out of sheer respect to him. Mr. Blough, to my very surprise, smiled and shook it. The very next school day, Mr. Blough took my very suggestion about having the class vote, and a lot of us thought music would be the ticket for us all. None of us actually expected Mr. Blough to do what he did, and that was to have a stereo system erected in his classroom to help us concentrate better as he played many fine versions of classical music. From that point on, in my freshman year all the way to my senior year, I have had nothing but sheer respect for Mr. Blough, and always looked forward to having him as my math teacher all through high school, as many of my friends did during their time in PHS as well. Mr. Blough, in time, earned his fame with us and became one of us instead of just a regular, everyday, by-the-book teacher. Mr. Blough, thank you so much for the memories and showing us all there was more to you than meets the eye, and you can't always judge a book by its color.